Now, welcome to another weekend ramble, where this time the topic is going to be characters somehow returning.
Yeah, we're gonna specifically talk a lot about the character of Kino Loy coming back for Andor season 2.
Which has been confirmed.
It has been. The actor himself has said that Kino didn't jump because if he would have jumped, he would have died. So he never jumped. He wasn't pushed. He wasn't carried forward with the throng.
I kind of like the idea of him jumping anyway.
I
I'd
do
rather
too.
die than go back in there.
Makes you wonder how many others maybe didn't jump. How many others in that group could not swim?
There's got to be some, right? Not everybody knows how to swim.
Correct.
Especially in the Star Wars galaxy, where there's planets that don't have water. I know everybody likes to laugh at the Rey scene in The Last Jedi when she dives into the water and swims perfectly, despite probably never seeing that much water in her life. But hey, we'll leave that alone.
Instincts kicked in, right?
Yeah, well, she can do a lot of things really well, so if she can swim, I guess, why
The
not?
Force guided her motions.
Yes,
I don't know.
Yep, it controls you when you swim. But anyway,
But relating this back with Kino Loy, more specifically because I feel like this might be a little bit of a disservice. I mean, obviously we don't know how they're going to handle this all yet, but Kino Loy is not dead. I mean, how does that make you feel?
happy and sad.
Happy and sad.
Well, I mean, I love the character. I think he was phenomenal in Andor season 1.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, as much as I'm like, I kind of wanted him to live, and that would be cool to know that maybe he gets out of there, or maybe he gets back to his other life, or who knows.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I'm curious what happens to him, almost the mystery is better.
I like the mystery. Like they left the mystery with Cinta.
Yeah, or
Like,
exactly.
did she, didn't she?
Or the fact that maybe he just was killed
He-
or tortured to death, which is tragic, but sometimes that bittersweet element of Star Wars, right? We watch all of them swim away except for Kino, who gave his life for everybody else to be able to swim away.
I feel almost a little bit jaded. Like him being alive almost feels like it diminishes what we perceived as his sacrifice.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm getting at. Like, I'd rather just not know, I think.
Because with him not jumping, we know that there were a few troops left behind, but they were all huddled hiding because they knew they were so outnumbered.
Yeah.
So what happened? Everyone jumps or whatever, and Kino and maybe a handful of guys just sit there and wait for the Imperials to come and get them, or for more Imperials to come and take the prison.
You just go back to work, pretend, I didn't even know there was like a prison
I
riot.
don't think there's any way you could pretend.
Well, he can't because he literally
He said it,
announces
yeah.
himself as who this is, and I'm the floor manager and all that. So they
Yep.
they know he
They
did
know
it.
he did it.
He was.
But it's like, okay, great. I'll just wait here. Someone will come along and put me back in my cell. It's great. It's fine. I mean, yes, he did. He still did sacrifice. He sacrificed his
Yeah,
freedom.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, he thought he was going to get out in X amount of days, but then he learned he wasn't. So
Or that he at least probably wasn't.
I
There's
guess-
no guarantees for sure.
I guess the part of the problem of if they would have kept it vague or unknown is we always just assume now in Star Wars, like if we do not literally see you cut in half or something, that you survived.
Everyone survives.
Well, I mean, even when you do get cut in half or fall down a hole, you still come back a lot of the time. I think this is just feeding into a bigger problem with Star Wars at this point.
It could be, yeah.
Again, I love Kino Loy, the character, but I do and I don't want him back because it's just kind of frustrating to keep seeing characters you think, oh, he had this heroic sacrifice and death. Nope, wait, he didn't. Or he was defeated in combat. Nope, wait, he didn't.
I'm curious though what kind of arc him being alive will lead for season 2. With the small amount of facts that we do know, and there was that trailer that was totally not bootlegable. Wink. And we saw the return of Dr. Gorst.
Gorst, yeah.
Gorst? Yes, the man who loves to torture with the sound of children screaming.
Yes, alien children screaming, yes.
I believe in the one image we see him in, he's in a white space. Could he have been called in to extract information about Andor from Kino? I mean, he was there to get Andor information from Bix. If he's like on the task of collecting Andor information, it could very well presumably lead him there.
You know what's funny? As much as I do like Kino Loy, I think it would be almost... I mean, if you're going to bring him back and claim he didn't die there, bringing in Gorst to torture him to death to get the information would be... I mean, that'd be more than bittersweet at that point. It's just a lot of bitter. Especially because we know a lot of them who escaped didn't escape. They got killed and captured. So if that's what they're going, I mean, we don't know that he's going to have like a story arc, right? I mean, he had a story arc obviously in season 1, but we don't know that he's not being brought in for more than like 10 minutes of Gorst comes in. You know, he gets to listen to the kids screaming. Speaking of Kino Loy, of course, and then he spills whatever he knows, which is virtually nothing. He doesn't know anything that's going to help them. He doesn't even know his name. Yeah, he doesn't even know that his name was Andor.
But by knowing the fake name, they could continue to trace Andor around.
They could try, yeah. So, I mean, if that's what it is, if they're bringing him back just to give him, like, a tragic death, I guess as disgusting as that sounds, as sadistic as that sounds, like, I'm kind of on board with that.
In a way, it might be really rewarding if Andor finds out that those prisons on Narkia 5 is still up and running and that they're filled up again. Maybe he decides one of the rebel missions they go on is to destroy those prisons, get no recruits, exactly. And he's the one who goes back for Kino.
Yeah, if he knows how poorly staffed they are, if he knows, the basic layout, he could probably lead a mission to
extricate prisoners. Yeah. It'll boost the troops for the rebellion, as well as all of those people will have stories to share to the galaxy to spread the word of how unfair and unjust the Empire is.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the goals, was to get it out there. Like, people didn't know what's going on in there. Mm-hmm. People don't know how poorly some in the galaxy are being treated.
Exactly. What I find interesting is there is a quote from Tony Gilroy kind of about how he saw Kino Loy within the prison within Narkia 5. He said, "Kino Loy and the rest of the show in many ways are political, but for me the prison sequence was always theological. It was always religious. There's nothing else religious in the show, really. It was the idea of a guy who had faith. His God is that number in his box. So the prison is populated by true believers and others like Melchi, who's an atheist, who doesn't believe. These two populations, in addition to others who are agnostic, are trying to figure it out. But for me, that was always about faith, and to watch somebody overnight lose their faith, there is no God, the numbers in the box are a lie. Andy got with this idea right away from the beginning, that Kino Loy's whole identity is tied to that faith. He believes if he does the right things, he will get out of prison. He will go to heaven. And, sorry, that's not happening."
That's kind of a horrible way to look at it.
It's an interesting way to look at it.
No, I understand exactly what he's saying.
When you have no hope in that prison, your literal hope is watching that box slowly tick down.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's got to be horrible to sit in there and watch a number tick down every day and to work 12 hours a day and go through this horrible
and then all of a sudden
existence.
Have it dropped on you that you're
never
not getting out. They'll just move you to a new part of the prison.
Yeah, because the only reason you keep going is because you think one day you're going to get out. And once you have that taken away, you have nothing left.
He got shattered, so he led a rebellion where he sacrificed himself because he could not swim. And now we'll see what happens to him after that choice was made.
Yeah, I get a funny feeling it's not going to be a big role. I think I'm leaning more towards he gets tortured and it's just this tragic kind of, maybe it gives him a breadcrumb to find. Like you said, they don't have the name Cassian Andor. I mean, they have the name Keith Kirgo or whatever he was called. Mm-hmm. So maybe that leads them to helping find him. I don't know.
If they see a picture.
But even though they still would have that name, so I don't really know what they would torture out of Kino Loy. It might just be that they torture him thinking he's going to,
Do you have any information on this man? Do you know what he was up to?
Yeah, and they won't know. He literally knows nothing. So he's just going to be
They won't know he knows anything, which is the point.
So yeah, it's just going to be this tragic case of him getting tortured. I mean, that's really all I can see. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe your theory about coming to break them all out because it would be good troops because they know the security is lax, though that might change after the prison break. So it feels like the only thing you're going to do with him is
put him through more pain and suffering.
Yeah, that's horrible, but perfect.
In a way, though, they have to also ask him questions about how the entire rebellion in the prison went about.
Well, sure.
Because they have to correct that error to make sure it cannot happen again.
Yeah, but in theory, what I'm saying is, like, Kino Loy doesn't know anything that's going to help them with anything, really.
But
he might know who, like, the instigators were, the masterminds, if you will, with Melchi and, Cassian, not Cassian. But that doesn't do them any good either. I mean, and then they can't be sure that they didn't drown on the way to the shore either, right?
Right. But one thing the show does very well is it shows us the brutality of the Empire, and that might literally be Kino's role to continue to show us. I mean, they do probably know that Andor made it because he showed up on Ferrix.
I mean, I will give Tony Gilroy even more credit than I already do if he heard how much people loved Kino Loy and decided to include him just to kill him. I know that sounds horrible.
Just to continue his
just to
honorable
show
death,
him
yeah.
just what opposing the Empire did to this man. Yes, it springs Cassian, who of course goes on to steal Death Star plans, and we know what that leads to.
Mm-hmm.
But to show what his sacrifice wasn't just like, oh, I can't swim, I have to go back. No, I can't swim, I have to go back and I'm going to get tortured to death for information I don't have.
As long as, for some reason, Disney doesn't decide they need to be involved at this point.
Oh, don't.
Fans
Please,
loved Kino.
don't.
Bring Kino back.
I don't think they're going to... You know, it's weird because they may, because they didn't get the ratings they wanted on the show, so they might
were
be
very
like,
hands-off
hey,
in season 1, but who knows
Yeah.
how hands-on they've decided to get.
Everybody likes Kino, have him so he jumped out and swam. That was my Mickey Mouse voice. Sorry,
It
everybody.
was horrible, by the way.
I know.
Horrible.
Yes, it was. But my point is, I don't think Disney would come in here because it's the best critically reviewed thing they've done, right? You know, critics actually really thought this was something special, so don't tamper with it.
Right.
And I'm going to go with my Tony Gilroy knows how much people, or heard how much people really liked Kino and wants to torture him. I think that's perfect. I think that's perfect in a weird sort of way.
In a weird way, yes. It is perfect because we need to know. Just like I wouldn't be surprised if maybe in season 2, I haven't heard yet if Cinta's character's coming back, but if she does, to have her maybe have nightmares of what she did.
Yeah.
Just so that we as fans 100% know that she did do it, but I still think she did do it.
She absolutely did it.
She's too cold to not have.
Yeah. That's why she wants to push everybody away, right? Because she's a monster.
Well, just like in
She thinks she's
the
a
finale,
monster.
there was no reason for her to kill that one ISB in disguise kind of dude. She stalked him down and killed him because she wanted to. He didn't know her part in any of it.
True.
She could have followed Vel and just let it go and
No,
moved
that's
on to
not
another
who she
planet.
is.
No, she couldn't. She couldn't leave him behind. She had to get more of her revenge.
No, I agree. She's, like I said, she's a monster. That's why she pushes people away, because she knows she is.
And these are well-written characters because of their flaws.
Yes. Generally, characters based off their flaws instead of their strengths are more interesting. Go figure. This is why we are talking in depth about Kino Loy, a guy who broke out of prison, or almost broke out of prison, and kind of chuckled about Rey at the beginning of the... Oh, I mean, we did, though.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to, bash on Rey. I'm simply saying when you make a character based off their strengths, you kind of get people who roll their eyes and go, oh, yep, whatever.
But part of the reason we love heroes is because they overcome their
Exactly.
flaws. Or they're a good
Exactly.
person despite their flaws.
Yes. We root for the underdog. Just any sporting event, what happens? If you're more neutral towards both teams involved, you tend to root for the team that's the underdog, don't you? It's just, I don't know what it is about us humans, but we tend to root for the underdog. We tend to want to see people overcome insurmountable odds because I believe that tells us or gives us hope that we can do the same in our own lives.
It's just crazy because Disney seems to understand that concept when they make some of their animated features about here's the character, here's something that's wrong with the character, here's how they overcome this.
Yeah, it's a very simple, and it'll always work.
It does.
It's that formula. It's tried and true, and will always be tried and true in story.
Like I said, Disney does that in their simple animated classics, but they kind of ignored that for the sequel trilogy. But that's neither here nor
Yeah,
there.
let's not. Yeah, I would not bash that to death. Again,
We're
that's
not.
a horse that's been decomposing for a while now.
But
no
I
need to
think-
drag it out again.
Continuing onward with these good characters that Gilroy writes, these flawed and destroyed and shattered characters, is amazing.
Yeah, he even says he creates characters that are off balance.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Because off balance
interesting.
keeps everybody guessing, and it's interesting.
Yeah, that's what Game of Thrones worked. Game of Thrones worked because you didn't know what some of these characters were going to do next. You didn't know how it was all going to play out. It's not like... I think that's the biggest problem with The Mandalorian is you go into the season and you know certain characters are not going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this, I mean, we know Cassian can't die yet and Melchi can't die yet. But it still works because the other characters around them you're just fascinated by and you wonder, what did happen to Kino Loy?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're going to see it was pretty bad what happens to him in the end. So I guess that's going to be all we got for you this time. So now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell us what you think about Kino Loy returning. What do you think they're going to do with him? What do you think about just death in general in Star Wars not kind of being the most permanent thing, perhaps? Whatever the case may be, leave those comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.